Hello, welcome. My name is Mary Ann Lucas, and I am located in Indianapolis, Indiana, or around that. And I'm glad you're here. I wanted to start with just a very simple watercolor, but I want to tell you what items you are going to be needing. And I have also put I'll put a photograph up at the end of this video that you can screenshot so that you will be able to see exactly what I purchased. Actually, you can get everything that I'm using today. You can actually get it at Michael's. And they have a lot of things there, and they're very reasonably priced. The first thing is 140-pound watercolor paper. It's a good weight to start with. I always buy the 9x12 pad, and it's by Artist Loft. You'll see that on the photograph. The other thing that I use is just for these purposes, I wanted you to see this is a very well-loved and used watercolor kit, but this is by Artist Loft as well. It's like $7.99, not expensive, and many times you can have a coupon from Michael's for 30% off of one item. So these are just very inexpensive, but they're very good. The colors are great. There's a good intensity to them. The paper runs about, I think, $9 or $10 for, I think, 24 sheets, something like that. So you'll need those two things. The other thing you'll need is you'll need some painter's tape. And I actually have been known to use the blue painter's tape that you use in your house. So you can use that, or you can get some of this white painter's tape. You can get it on Amazon. I imagine they have it at Michael's as well. You can also use washi tape. So it doesn't really matter. It's just something that's not permanent that will come off of your paper easily when you get done with your piece. My watercolor brush that I use a round brush most of the time. I like a round number 10 or number 12 brush. This is by Princeton, if you can see that. I like the Princeton brushes. This is an acrylic brush, but I use it for watercolor because I love the size and the feel of it. I also like the Velvet Touch. They're a red handled brush, and I get those at Michael's as well. So we're just gonna start and do a very simple landscape today. I want to encourage you to just play around with color, and don't worry if the colors mix. That's the beauty of watercolors, that they do some really, really fun things. The one thing that you want to do before you start painting is you want to prime your watercolors with a little bit of water with a spray bottle to get them going, kind of get them softened up a little bit. And we're gonna paint a spring landscape today because I am jonesing for spring. I'm sure you are as well. And I'm gonna load up my brush with just a little bit, or actually I said a little bit. I'm gonna load it up with a lot of color and water, and we're gonna actually just kind of drag it across the page. And you can do in the middle, you can do wherever you want. Be very loose, and I like to hold my brush on the very end because that gives you less control, which is really a fun thing. A lot of people like to have control, but with watercolor, I find that you can do some really beautiful things if you just let the watercolor do what it does. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of a green in here. And then I'm gonna just take some plain water, and I'm gonna go and brush it along that initial color. And then I'm gonna go across the middle of it to kind of spread. And you'll find when you touch the paper with plain water, whatever color is there kind of seeks out the water, and it becomes a little bit clearer, or a little bit lighter in color, but the color bleeds up into it, and it just makes for a really beautiful painting. I'm going to do a little bit of a lighter color up here. And I'm just going to kind of keep going. I need a little bit. I'm going to use some of this springy green kind of in here. And you just want to let the paint do what it does. I'm going to come back with some darker. I'm going to do some really kind of fun things that's at the base of your wooded area, and then come back with, again, that kind of springy, fun green color that we all love so much. We've had kind of a wild winter here in Indiana. It's been pretty cold. It's warming up, thankfully. But there's been lots of crazy weather and things happening this winter all over. Now I'm going to use a little bit of water and dot around. And then I'm also going to go back with a little bit of gray. I'm going to just keep going over that gray till it lightens up. And all of a sudden you see a horizon line that forms. Some really fun things happening. Kind of like I said, you gotta let the paint do what it does. I'm gonna get some blue. I'm gonna start going over some of this with this very pale blue. As you look at the horizon outside, you'll notice that the sky close to the horizon is light and it gets darker as it goes up towards space. So I'm going to put a little bit of darker blue up here at the top. And I'm going to then blend the two together. Okay? And don't be afraid, be brave. Paint can do really wonderful things, and if you let it. So we're just gonna do something like that. So you get this really wonderful play going on here where it looks like it's going back in. This is kind of our wooded line. I'm gonna now just use plain water, and I'm gonna go along that initial wooded area with plain water to kind of get a little bit of that color bleeding down. And we're going to wet a lot of this. Now up here we did wet on dry. Down here we're gonna do a little bit of wet on wet to start with. And I'm gonna go with just this kind of neutral khaki color. Gonna give us some bones to work with here. And then we're gonna go in with this really pretty, again, that springy color. And believe it or not, I'm gonna start going in with some color, with some pinks. And then I'm gonna go ahead and wet most of this because I can. It's good to have it in there. And maybe we want a little bit of this pretty, lovely, kind of a lilac-y purple color. How could that be bad, right? Just to go back with our green. Now I want to go back in with a little bit of a darker green along this row. And I'm going to drag a little bit of that down here as well. Okay. And the one thing you can do, you can take the end of your paintbrush and you can, kind of give it a little bit of action here. Just do some scritches, and that'll kind of give your painting some texture. Okay. Do go up and down and around. It'll give you kind of a little bit of a pattern to work with. Now see, that has dried. So we're gonna wet it a little bit. So we're gonna spread the water around a little. And that gives you something to play with there. So, and I think I'm gonna use a little bit more of this spring green to give it a little bit more pop. You do have to be careful with watercolor because it will muddy up. And even though I've been painting a really long time, I still can muddy the heck out of stuff. So you do have to be a little patient. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this darker color right here. Now, believe it or not, I'm gonna use purple, a dark purple, to go along this line to indicate the darkness there and shadows, okay? And I'm gonna leave that for just a minute. I might have just lied to you. I might go over it a little bit just to get it to spread down slightly. But that'll give you an idea of what can happen. I'm going to tone that green down a little bit with a little bit of this olive color. Just really kind of pretty. It's nice. I'm going to mix that a little bit with our spring color with a little bit more spring. Now see, I'm actually getting a little bit too dark, but it's okay. It's all right. Won't hurt a thing. We just have to keep going. And I'm creating a little bit of some terrain in here just because the world is not flat all the way around. And that's kind of a nice look. So let's do some more pinks down here. And maybe we even throw in a little bit of gold just to have maybe an indication of some new crops going in. I like the idea of maybe some winter wheat going in there. Put a little bit more yellow up here, just to give it a little bit of action. I'm gonna go over the pink, over the yellow with a little bit of pink. It's nice. Okay, it's pretty. Let's do a little bit of this darker green, just to say we did. Go over it down here a little bit. We're just going to let the colors marry up a little bit. I want one of those back areas to look a little bit more green, so I'm going to go over that. If you noticed, I put a little bit of green down, and I rinsed my brush out, and then I spread that green over because I didn't want it to be very overpowering, okay? And then this area right in here, I want it to have a little bit more of this yellowy green to it. So I'm gonna dab into that and kind of work it around. Give it a little bit of activity there. And then I think the other thing that you can do is, believe it or not, use a little bit of this red, kind of just dab it around. Gives you some shadows. Got a little bit too much red there, but see, now I've muddied it up. So you can use your brush, becomes a sponge, and you can take some of that color away. That's pretty, actually. I think I actually want some of this really pretty purple. I'm gonna just dab that in here and let it spread around a bit. Looks like lilacs a little bit. Take a little bit of that away. And then I think I'll get a little bit of this pink and dab a little pink in there. Give it a little spring. And we need to do something right in here. I think I'd like to do, I'm gonna mix some of my green together with this guy. There we go. I'm gonna put a little bit of this in here. Okay, there we go. Going a little more. And hold your brush on the side. You can kind of mess around with how you do the lines and the layers. It's just some really wonderful things can happen. It's pretty. I think I want this to be a little bit, maybe this back here to be a little more blue. So I'm going to get a little bit of blue on my brush, a little bit of the gray, and maybe we go over that a little bit more. And if I wanted to, I could even put in another hint of another hill behind it. That's super cool too. That works great. And if you do things in threes, it tends to look really pretty. So if you look here, I've got 1, 2, 3 different layers. Now I did not do any clouds in the sky. I'll cover those later. You can actually make clouds, believe it or not, with paper towel, but I'm going to go ahead and try with a little bit of this white watercolor. See, it's just not going to work very well. You can use gouache to create some clouds. You can do some different things. So I'm going to put this on here, and then hopefully we'll get a little bit of, if I use my paper towel here, I could take a little bit of that paint off. A little bit of a trick that artists have. And we're gonna just, yep, there we go. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but you can see it just gives it a little bit of texture, and our clouds appear, which is really fun. Love that. I might do it again. I think I'll go over here a little bit more. Let's go in the middle a little bit more too. We're gonna let that water sit for a minute, and then we'll soak that up. So we've got some, you know, even as it dries, if you see a line you don't like, you can always go back over it a little bit. That's the, I know watercolor is a little bit permanent and people are scared to do that, but I think you can mess with it a little bit. I even kind of like this peachy color, which is really pretty, and kind of fun to put it down and then pull it back up a little bit, spread it around. Now these guys have got a little bit too much color in them, so I'm gonna pull a little bit of these up. Someone's calling me. I'm going to ignore that for a minute. Yeah, we're gonna pull a little bit of these up so that we can see what's going on. Kind of like this darker color in here. This kind of blue-green is just super pretty. The other thing that I do is, not only do I do the dark purple, but I do a blue as well, which is kind of fun. And it spreads and can create some really nice shadowing. Because really it's just tone that's doing things. I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it up a little so that those blues run and bleed a little bit more, which is pretty fun. Now over here, they're not doing it too much, so I think we'll probably have to pull some of that water back. There we go. And I think what I'll do is throw a little bit of pink on that. And pink and blue make purple, so that's pretty fun. Okay, so don't be afraid. Try new things. What's really cool is as this dries, you can see there's some really fun things that start happening in here where the colors bleed together. You can also purchase a dryer. It's a heat gun, and I get this from Amazon. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and you can see what it looks like in the end. There we go. It's not all the way dry, but you can see that, you know, it's really pretty. Gets a little bit of texture going on. These paints are a little chalky, which kind of explains that they're inexpensive, but I like how it looks. But anyway, I encourage you to play and enjoy it and see what you can come up with. So I hope you enjoyed that today. You will see a photograph in just a minute of all the things that I've used today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks so much.